think when you look at championship programs, one thing you'll find like coaching staffs that don't have very much turnover, and they have guys that spend a lot of time together. And there's that, you build that language structure and that communication, of your offense. And so everything moves faster, and you can't do it alone as an offensive coordinator. It's like, everyone should be an offensive coordinator on your staff. So you got to get everybody speaking the same language. You got to be in the same mindset. So being able, like Walls was doing, he had his personal training business going on then, and then I was working the camp business. So in the off season, during football season, that's the off season of our businesses. We were a seasonal business. So we would get to, live together that first year, and then wake up, and essentially we'd go to the office and we would just grind and watch film and talk about ball and talk about ideas. And there is nothing better than just being able to just not have to go teach 5 hours of biology, and just, talking inside zone steps, talking, slide protection, talking, Y cross and levels concepts. I mean, that just accelerated everything for us. So what we were able to do with our players that year was pretty phenomenal, because we were just able to kind of, make sure is everything linked together? Do we have a process to teach and install this? And you just don't have that ability in high school quite often, to get everyone on the same page, because time is so, minimal.
That's what I was, and me and Walls have always talked about it, and that's one of the things that I've liked the most about, the NFA and some of the stuff that you do is you talk about the common language and everyone knowing exactly what everyone's talking about, and especially in certain parts of football, like just the few years I've been around, like coverages. Coverages are called 18 different things for the exact same thing, and we've had the mid zone and inside zone argument, and everything is just so different that it's like, is it mid zone this year, mid zone from last year? Is it what is it, stubby? Is it all the different stuff that everyone's talking the same thing but calling it 18 different things? I think that's been the coolest thing for me to see, is just you to be able to talk. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Right. Man, that is like, if you ask me what's the most important thing, I mean, one of them, it's the language. And we spend so much time making sure the words that we choose to speak to a step, the words that we choose to call it coverage, the words that we choose to call it concept, is important. We just don't, we spend a lot of time. Like, so for example, coming into this new program, I'm spending more time on the defensive side because we're a smaller school. So everybody's coaching both ways. Everybody's going both ways. So, I'm trying to bring that language and that process to the defensive side of the ball. And that's hard to do in bigger schools, because if you have a defensive coordinator on your staff, he knows his language that he learned, and they're not, and I understand that as offensive coordinator, if you come in and told me I had to call this way, that would be tough to do. So I'm in kind of a unique environment now where I can kind of dictate, hey, look, we're going to call, cover one this, and we're going to call, a flood concept this, and we're going to call, a zone blitz this. And now I can cross-train my players that on both sides of the ball, we're calling, concepts and steps and alignments the same thing. So now it helps on scout team. Like,
yes.
Like we're teaching scout team, hey, getting a tight front. Well, the tight front's an under front for us. So, hey, we're going field cat. That's a field zone blitz. So now we don't, like at Jinx, we were having to teach our kids 2 different languages for the same thing, because the defense would call, a front one way and then we call the other. And it's like, who's willing to change here? And most coaches being stubborn, not having the time to do that, we would be like, well, we're just going to call it what we want. And that confuses everything. So, long-winded answer, but I think that language concept is critical. And, I think as a staff, if you're putting a staff together, or you're an OC, I think you really need to spend a lot of time with your guys, deciding what we're going to call everything.
The other thing I thought was awesome that you did too with concepts was you were able to take all of these West Coast passing concepts, and obviously we built them into families, but you were also able to take plays and almost make them like hybrids of each other. Like, so for instance, Seahawk with a couple of tweaks, you could almost run Seahawk as it almost could act like double slant. It could act, as a 4 verti killer hitting the ball in the seam. It could also act with the tag as smash, and it was also regular levels if they were playing cap. So, you're basically teaching 4 concepts in one, and you're not having to have all these other calls. So talk a little bit about that, because honestly, that was another one of the big things I took from you is pare down your pass game, but then through the usage of tags, now it looks like, God, these guys run 25 concepts. No, right. We run 8.
Right. Yeah, so that was kind of the premise of the book of Adapt or Die was the ability to create adaptability with simplicity. So I think and you can't create adaptability within concepts or your structure until you understand the relationships between concepts. And
Yes.
so once you have that family structure and you can see the relationships between concepts and what they attack. So it's like, before that, I would have like 3 different concepts that attack the same space. Why do I need that? Why do I need 3 different plays that attack the same areas? And so that's where I kind of went down the rabbit hole of trying to define, okay, what are the families of concepts in the football, in the passing game? And so that they're this. Here's the 5 families from the intermediate. So you have 4 vertical, you have 3 vertical. Right. And so those protect each other. So if a defense is basically, has uncapped seams, you go 4 vertical, cover 3. I mean, we know that. But what takes those away? Well, it's any kind of 2 high. So that's where the 3 vertical concept comes in. So once I understand that 4 vertical concept protects 3 vertical and vice versa, then I need to know, okay, I need a 4 vertical concept in my passing game and I need a 3 vertical. And, there's only really one way you can run 4 verticals, right? So 3 verticals, there's several different ways you can draw 3 vertical concepts. So now we got to decide which 3 vertical concept do we want to be our staple this year in our offense. Okay, and the next families were smash concepts and curl concepts. So smash create horizontal stretches on a flat defender. Curl concepts create horizontal stretches on a flat defender. Smash creates a vertical stretch on a flat defender. So those protect each other. And then the last one were just general flood concepts. Those attack sides of space. So that's like a full, deep third stretch to the side of the field. So that's really the 5 base families of intermediate pass concepts. I mean, there's really every concept in football is going to boil down into one of those 5, right?
Yep.
So once you understand those 5 families, now you can see, okay, in my offense, I need at least one concept in each of those families. And then now, what if I could take a concept like a curl concept and tag it with a different route to get a smash concept? What if I could tag that concept with another route to get a 3 vertical? So that's where those like hybrids started to come into play. So my goal was to find, what we call all-weather concepts that can be, one in each family with tags. And now, in a team like now where I'm in a 2A school where everyone goes both ways, it's very critical because I don't have time to teach 5 different plays. And I don't have time to get good at 5 different ones. I need that one play that has all of those ability to run those different variations of families with tags. So,
well, I got our daily must. We start every day. First about 5 minutes, we do a daily must, and I got them from Bennett, and I think they're great. And I've told the kids multiple times, everything we do in these drills, and there's about 8 drills, and they're really quick. You go down to the hash, then the safeties coach sends them back to me, and then we move to the next drill. And I got them from Bennett, and it's every function that you will do as a corner, whether it's a tight weave where you got to push, you think that you're going outside, but then you go back inside and you're kind of down the line, to a right pole and a left pole, to be able to turn your hips, throw the elbow, and go and turn on the line and stay on a straight line, pedal and weaving and keeping your hips and shoulders square, but being able to transition off the line, but keeping everything square. I mean, you would be surprised. Most kids want to click their heels and play basketball when they do that. They don't understand the concept of just basically backpedaling at an angle while keeping your shoulders and your hips square. And so I really try and work on a lot of just the technical things, especially in football school. But in terms of alignment and reading, I'm really big on split rules. Do you have a reduced single receiver? If I have a reduced single receiver, then we go back to film. Do they run an out route to the boundary? There are a few teams that will do it. I personally think it's dumb, but there are guys that will run an out route into the boundary. Or otherwise he's going on a drag, split rules where I don't like my corners outside the numbers. I'm coming from Baylor. I saw it. There's no reason why a corner should have his heels on the sideline. You're basically not even in the play. So go ahead and stay inside. If he runs a fade route, you still have the angle on him, or he's probably coming back inside. So those are the little tricks that in departure speed. Most high school receivers aren't good enough to run hard every single time, even when they're running a 7-yard hitch. And so you can kind of get that the eye discipline part is what's real big for me.
So when you say like football school, how does that work for you, Coach? You guys have is it one of your hours or or what is that looking like? Because I know there's obviously different
Right.
rules for different states. So how's that work in Texas? And then obviously, when are you guys doing that? Is it a class period, or is it any
Yeah.
paper and pencil, or is it all out on the field?
We are lucky we have an advisory period, which is like a 35-minute study hall every day. And so we tell the kids, if you don't have to go, because we do grade checks in Texas, so every 6 weeks they have to be passing in order to play. So we kind of are constantly monitoring the kids' grades. So unless they have to make up a test or they have an assignment that they missed and they need help on homework, they're going to they're going to that class for advisory. If they don't have a class and they're getting all A's and B's, we expect them to at least just come check in. We may watch them. We may just talk about life. We may go over a new scheme we're covering. And so we kind of try and use that classroom time so that when we get to the athletic period in the state of Texas, you are allowed to do your sport during the athletic period. Now, you can't I think the rules are like you can't use pads and you can't use helmets and shoulder pads and you can't use like tackling dummies and things like that. But you can do pretty much in just shorts and T-shirts, and you can do anything with a ball. So we basically run through an hour-long practice. We just don't – a lot of it's 7-on-7, our individual drills, going over coverages. So when we get to spring and we get our 15 practices, we're really just kind of going over things, and we can really focus on the scheme part of it and not necessarily the learning part of it. So you kind of get ahead. And most schools in Texas are doing what's called a football school several times during the week, and then they'll get their lifting through powerlifting, because most schools in Texas have a powerlifting team, and pretty much everybody on football is in powerlifting, and so you kind of get your lifting time there as well.
Coach, what's your favorite drills as far as I should say, like either group or team? I mean, are you a 7-on-7 guy, being a secondary guy? I know I've been up to Nebraska, and they actually break it up into kind of half field. So they're doing 2-man combos versus 3 guys. So they call it 3-over-2 and 4-over-3 for their trip zone stuff. Is there any special drills that you guys like to do? Or are you just a 7-on-7 dude? What are some things you like to do kind of as a secondary guy?
Yeah, I actually was going to say half line. I call it half line. I think it's a really big teaching tool. I don't necessarily use it that much during the season, but it is a big part of what we do. I know we implemented it last year. It helped us out. We actually had 2 freshmen and a sophomore in our secondary last year, and then we kind of had a revolving door at one of the safeties. And so it helped our younger guys, especially the linebackers. At the high school level, a lot of linebacker coaches, they just focus on stopping the run, and you don't really get that pass distribution piece. They don't feel comfortable. They don't necessarily know what to do unless you're playing man and I got a guy. So the half line piece really kind of breaks it down. They don't have to worry about, is somebody coming from the other side, or kind of I'm lost in space. You can kind of put your guys into the boundary that are in the boundary, and then your guys to the field. Most of the game is played on a hash, and so you pick Monday you go on the left hash, Tuesday you go on the right hash, and then Friday, left, right, and then Friday you play 7-on-7. So I think that's kind of like, I use that so much as a teaching tool, not just for my defensive backs, but for the linebackers to really kind of get their eyes right. Because sometimes when you do 7-on-7, there's so much going on, even just on the other side. And if you just throw a kid into it like that, they sometimes don't necessarily hear or see everything because it's kind of all at once. But if you kind of break it down into halves and compartmentalize it, a lot of times those kids, it comes to them a lot faster. So half line to me, outside of the daily must that I do every day just for hips and footwork, that's really crucial just for the overall defensive structure.